Skiro, and this is Adnan Reed in the Clutch, and I want to talk about the recent trade going on between the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves, as the New York Knicks are going to receive Karl-Anthony Towns, and I want to be able to gather all the available evidence and the data, and along with that, the behind-the-scenes storylines that went on, why this trade happened, and the front office news as to why X team would be able to make this trade, for what reason. And along with that, there's also even more developing news going on from one of the teams, which I'm going to discuss here today. So without further ado, let's recap. So the New York Knicks are going to receive Karl-Anthony Towns from the Minnesota Timberwolves. In exchange, the Timberwolves will receive Julius Randle, Donte Divencenzo, a first-round pick via the Detroit Pistons. Now, when looking at the Detroit Pistons, they're not expected to contend this year, and they've been one of, if not the worst teams in the NBA. And there's a high chance that the draft pick will be at least a top 5 pick, because the Detroit Pistons have, like I said, they've been one of the worst teams, but because of their recent draft lottery luck, they've been the number 5th pick, or sometimes maybe they struck gold with the number 1st pick back in 2021 with Cade Cunningham, but it's a hit or miss. So now the Timberwolves are going to receive that pick, and then the Detroit Pistons are basically going to be screwed out of it. So that's going to be very important to watch. And when looking at this, I mean, it's understandable. It looks on the surface that, like, why would the Minnesota Timberwolves trade Karl-Anthony Towns? I mean, he's one of their best players. He's their cornerstone. He's been their best player they've had since Kevin Love or even Kevin Garnett. Ironically, both of them are Kevins. But anyway, my point is that Karl-Anthony Towns, he's been their anchor, their franchise, their cornerstone big man. And I thought that too at first. I was like, why would the Timberwolves do that? That was like, it was kind of puzzling. I'm like, they're literally just helping out the Knicks. Well, after doing some further investigation, further research, I did come across a little article that basically said how Karl-Anthony Towns is owed $220 million for the next 4 seasons. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, they can't afford that, because I made a video last year where the Timberwolves are basically spending $400 million in just their big men alone, in Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and Naz Reid. That's just between their centers. I'm not even talking about Anthony Edwards. I'm not talking about Jaden McDaniels or Mike Conley. I'm not talking about any of those players. I'm just talking about just their 3 big men. In their total salaries between those 3, they're owed $400+ million, which is, I thought, was ridiculous at the time, and I didn't get it. And yes, they did make it further in the playoffs. They did defeat the defending champions in the Denver Nuggets in the second round. I will give them that. That was very impressive, but the Timberwolves cannot sustain that, especially cap-wise, because with the new CBA, they're most likely will be in the second apron, and they're going to be stripped of all their trading rights and be able to sign free agents, and they're just like, and they have to pay a large luxury tax bill. Like, it's just like, it was going to cripple them. So they basically had no choice but to make this trade, you know, for the money-wise. And not only that, but if we're talking for pure basketball reasons, I believe everything that Karl-Anthony Towns can do, Anthony Edwards can do all that, you know, and then some, because Karl-Anthony Towns, as great of a center he is, and he's very talented, like, his main game is offense. He doesn't have the best defensive skills in the league, and Anthony Edwards, he can be able to do all that scoring and all, like, the passing, and be just that floor general and that team leader that the Timberwolves desperately need. And if Karl-Anthony Towns, if all he can do is just offense and not really help out on the defensive end, then basically what they're doing is just running a whole marathon of just trying to keep up with the scoring, and the other team, they're going to match that or probably have even more, and that's going to wear out both players, especially come playoff time, because all they're doing is scoring, and it's just going to, like, eventually they're going to get tired, and they're not going to be able to, like, focus on, like, okay, we need help on defense, and defense is very key. And I believe that's partly why they brought in Rudy Gobert, because he may not have as deep of an offensive bag, he's still serviceable on offense, but his defense is his main thing. And in the NBA, especially, like, defense is key to winning championships. We've seen numerous of teams recently, just look at basically Kevin Durant's teams from the Brooklyn Nets and now the Phoenix Suns. They can score the lights out, but their defense is terrible, and they lose a lot of games, and they end up bounced out of the first round in the playoffs. And the Timberwolves are seeing that, and they're looking at this, and they're like, okay, we don't want that to happen, because that's going to be a failure for us this season, and we want to be able to win a championship. So we have to give up some offense to be able to maintain our defense. And plus, they have a young center in Naz Reid, who I mentioned is part of their 3 big men, who he is just as offensive skilled. He has a bunch of, like, tricks up his bag on offense, and he's also a young center who can learn and develop his game. He can learn under Rudy Gobert, where Rudy Gobert can be a mentor to Naz Reid on specifically for defensive purposes, and then Naz Reid can be able to blossom and be their long-term center. Whereas Rudy Gobert, he's their guy at the present moment. But Naz Reid, he can be able to, God willing that he's healthy, be their franchise center for the next 10 plus years because of how young he is, to complement Anthony Edwards. And so when looking at this is it kind of makes sense now. And as you think about it, with the money situation, how it's just going to be too much offense between Cat and Anthony Edwards, and it only makes sense to be able to shave that money and also be able to have a balance, because you need both offense to score and you need defense to be able to contain the other team and not wear out just having like a shootout every single game. And it's just going to lead to early exits, because we have seen several teams try that experiment and it just did not work. So it makes perfect sense from the Minnesota Timberwolves perspective. And also, talking about the New York Knicks, I know a lot of people were really upset as to why would they trade Donte Divencenzo? They just got rid of the Nova Knicks before the season even started. Now the Nova Knicks are basically like the players that played at Villanova who ended up at the New York Knicks. It was Jalen Brunson, Donte Divencenzo, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges. And none of the four got to even play a game together. Well, it was reported as well that Donte Divencenzo was not happy in New York, especially with his limited role, how basically they brought in Jalen Brunson and Donte's friends over to help him out and be able to contend for a title. And that means that Donte Divencenzo, of course, his role is going to be diminished. He's not going to be one of the main options anymore, and he doesn't want that. So he wants to go somewhere where he can continue to grow his game and be one of the major focal points for said team's offense, which is why the Knicks were willing to include Donte in that trade. Now, normally on the surface, I'll be like, that's really selfish, or that's kind of messed up, or that's not the right mentality. But I mean, Donte Divincenzo, I mean, he has nothing to lose in this situation because he already has a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks back in 2021. He was a key player for them, and he's already got his ring, so he's good. He's just trying to be able to play as much as possible and be able to get the most money because he's got his ring. What does he need? Jalen Brunson, he's in search of his ring. He's trying to be able to give everything the Knicks can possibly have to be able to contend for a title. That's why he left literally over $100 million on the table so the Knicks can be able to afford to make these trades, to bring in Mikal Bridges, to re-sign all the players they need to sign, to be able to bring in Karl-Anthony Towns. He did that so he can give the Knicks the best chance because he wants that championship ring for the New York Knicks. So that's why that trade basically went down. And with Karl-Anthony Towns, I believe this is going to be good for him in his career because, as I mentioned, he's going to be able to contend for a championship on a very stacked roster in the New York Knicks. And their only main competition, in my personal opinion, is the defending champion Boston Celtics, because the Celtics are going to be able to at least keep their core for at least one more year before the new CBA kicks in, and then they're going to be forced to make some really tough decisions, or they're going to have to swallow a major tax bill that's like, that'll destroy any business in reality, but we'll just have to wait and see, but that's a topic for another day. So with that being said, the Knicks are they're going to be able to compete and have a really stacked roster, and I believe it's going to be good for Karl-Anthony Towns' game because, as I mentioned, he's an offensive player. That's his main thing. Well, the New York Knicks, they're a defensive-minded team with Tom Thibodeau, who's been known for getting his guys to think only about defense, and that's his main game. That's what he builds his game plans around, just having the best defense, being able to take care of the game, to be able to minimize the scoring from the opposing team and just be able to get many steals and blocks and contend every single shot out there possible, which is going to be good for Karl-Anthony Towns to take up his game to the next level because he is one of the best centers in the league, but nobody talks about him as, is he the number one guy in the entire NBA? Is he someone like a Nikola Jokic or a Joel Embiid or even an Anthony Davis or a Giannis Antetokounmpo? Nobody talks about Karl-Anthony Towns in that regard because he only has one side of the game. Well, him with the Knicks, he can be able to use both sides. He can improve his defense to where he's a lot more serviceable on defense and to improve, and he can now, especially most likely that the Knicks, God willing, can win a lot more and deep in the playoffs. And if they win a championship this year or next year, Karl-Anthony Towns will now rightfully be regarded as one of the best centers in the league because now he has both sides of the coin where he's really good on offense and really good on defense under that system, which is going to be good for his career. And he's already had an impressive career up to this point, as he is, at the time of recording, a 4-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, the 2015-2016 Rookie of the Year and All-Rookie. And just this past season, he had some good numbers as well. He averaged 21.8 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 3 assists, 0.7 steals and blocks, while shooting 50.4% from the field and shooting a very impressive 41.6% from three-point range. Those are really good numbers right there. And this is his chance to be able to elevate his game even further on defense under Tom Thibodeau. So overall, I like this trade for both sides for their respective reasons. The Knicks, it can be able to help contend, go all in against the Boston Celtics, and possibly even make it to the finals. For the Timberwolves, they're making a smart long-term decision. They're going all in on Anthony Edwards, and they're relying on his offense and also getting some complementary pieces to help his game out, and then focus on defense and prioritizing Rudy Gobert over Karl-Anthony Towns, which I know is very cruel, especially Cat being there for many years, but the NBA is a business, and the Timberwolves, they are ready to contend. They want to go for a ring as well, because they were just competing with the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, and they know, they feel in their hearts and souls that they can compete for they can compete for an NBA Finals berth. So I think it's really good. Let me know what you guys think. Knicks fans, what do you guys think? Do you guys like this trade overall? Do you not like it? And another thing I forgot to mention is that the Knicks are not even done with this making moves, because it is being reported, I found out today, that the New York Knicks are looking to trade Mitchell Robinson, because they are both taking and receiving calls of being able to trade for Mitchell Robinson, who's an amazing defender. He's a really good center. I believe anybody would love to have Mitchell Robinson on there. But with Karl-Anthony Towns being able to be their star player, they're going to have to take some calls, see if they can get some more complementary pieces for Jalen Brunson, because Mitchell Robinson, he has been injured lately, and he's probably going to be buried in the rotation where he's not going to have as many minutes. So you might as well get something out of him. That's my interpretation as to why they would trade Mitchell Robinson, because of his injury history and him not having too much use in the rotation. So we'll just have to wait and see, and hopefully when we find out, God willing, make a video about that and give my reaction. So overall, let me know what you guys think. Knicks fans, do you guys like this trade overall? Do you believe this can help get you guys over the hump to get to the NBA Finals and defeat the Boston Celtics on the way there, or even whoever's in the Western Conference? And Minnesota Timberwolves fans, what do you guys think? Do you guys like this trade as well, or are you guys happy or sad to see Karl-Anthony Towns go? Are you going all in on Anthony Edwards and the development of Naz Reid? I'd love to hear you guys out in the comment section down below, so we can discuss and be able to share our opinions and give our predictions as to who's going to win the finals, because both teams are really close and they're very capable of contending. So I think this is going to be an interesting trade to see how it pans out. So thank you all so much for your time and effort. I certainly love and appreciate every single last one of y'all. Please like and subscribe to the channel. This certainly means a lot to be able to give this content to y'all. God bless you all, and talk soon.